Today you're going to be making a landscape clay tile. There's two examples here, and you should already have your drawing ready. This is the drawing that produced this clay tile. This is the drawing that produced this clay tile. And you'll notice that all of them have a foreground, a middle ground, and a background. And so I have another drawing that I'm going to turn into a clay tile for you to see the process. So first thing I'm going to do is draw a rough outline on my clay, starting with my horizon line. Remember, that's the line that separates the sky from the ground. And then my foreground and middle ground separation. So my foreground is the sand, my middle ground is the water. And so I'm just going to use a wavy line for that. Next, I want to start working on the details of my background and my middle ground. So if you look at either of these closely, you'll see that the background and the middle ground are a little thinner than the foreground because the background and the middle ground, I carved away the designs, and the foreground I added to. So to carve away at my sky, I'm going to use a tool. You could also use your finger if you wanted. And I'm going left to right, horizontal lines to kind of represent the way clouds move across the sky. You can do anything you want with your landscape, just as long as you include a foreground, a middle ground, and a background, and that you have the foreground sticking out forward. Okay, so simple enough. That's what I'm going to do for my sky. My water, I'm going to use a pencil and make some waves. Now, the other thing we learned about space and distance is that things that are farther away look smaller. So my waves in the back will be shorter and thinner than my waves in the front. So you'll want to draw them with the pencil or a tool or your finger, but keep in mind the rules of space and distance. Big in the front, smaller as it gets farther away from the viewer. All right, so the most time-consuming part will be what you add to the foreground. So for my foreground, I'm doing sand and this palm tree. So we're going to add to it. New concept. Common way to build things to add on is by using a coil. So remember, a coil is when you take clay and you roll it into sort of a snake-like shape. Now, you can then mold this into anything else. So for the sand, I would probably want to smush it and flatten it out. So I've got a piece over here that I've already sort of done that with. And I think this would kind of work for my sand. I could continue to mold it how I wanted it. And then I need to attach it. So this is important. This feels like it's stuck because the clay is still moist. But if I fired this in the kiln, it would not stay stuck. We have to score, slip, and smooth. So scoring means to rough it up. I'm going to cross hatch lines across each other with, oh, I ripped it, but that's fine. You can use a toothpick. You could use a pencil. You just need to add some rough texture. And then you want to add slip. And if you don't have slip, you can add water. Slip is clay and water mixed together. You can use your finger or a brush to apply the slip. You would apply it to both sides of the pieces. And then attach and press it in. And clay, you can keep molding it. So if it gets a little messed up, don't stress about it. Keep working with it. So that was two S's, score, slip, and the third S is smooth. So I want to smooth out all the seams where the clay is attaching one piece to another just to make it stronger. So that could be my sand. The tree, I would use a similar concept, starting with a coil, kind of laying it down to plan how I want it. So I'm not attaching it until I know I've got it planned out how I want it. So maybe I start with the trunk, and then I'm going to have my branches coming off. And so we need to talk about texture. What kind of texture and details would I want to add to this? The sand would be pretty simple. I think we could just do some dots. We could use baby coils to make some shells. There's a little baby coil, similar to how I made the grass on this one. So this is a marsh, and this marshy grass is baby coils. So if I roll up a baby coil, that could be my shell. Now, my tree, I could just carve into it to have the palm texture, or could maybe smush these a little flatter and then actually cut into them for more detailed separation. So there's lots of different ways you can mold and bend and cut and add texture to your clay. And not everybody is doing a beach. So anything you're doing, though, you should be able to start with some sort of a coil and then mold it. And of course, the last thing would be to attach all of this using the 3 S's, the scoring, the slipping, and the smoothing. And so here's one that I finished just a little bit ago. With my tree, I've got my texture, everything is attached. I've added one other detail. I used a little coil to make the white foam of the ocean waves when they come ashore. So you're adding your own details, your own texture, your own design, and then your last step is to kind of clean it up. Before you put it in the kiln, you want to try to make the actual overall shape of your tile feel symmetrical. So you can just slice through the edges. You can decide if you want your edges to be sharp and pointy or more rounded. I chose rounded for both of these. It's totally up to you as the artist. And you'll also need to add some holes for hanging. So we'll run string through the holes, but you'll decide a paintbrush or a pencil is a good size to just poke all the way through. And you want them evenly spaced. So either all the way out on the ends or symmetrical in the middle, right? Because we'll put a string through it and then a nail in the wall, and this can hang. So have fun working on your clay landscape. Can't wait to see what you do.